Heroes of Another Age.
Cool.
Mhm.
All right. Hello, everyone. We're here with BL. She just wrote and published Heroes of Another Age. Very excited to hear about it. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about the book and yourself and what you got and what got you into writing?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on today, JP. To give your viewers a look, this is
Yes,
my book,
please.
Heroes of Another Age.
Ooh, love it. Love
Won a
the
gold
cover.
medal in the Literary Titans, but it's a fantasy book set in world of my creation, Eris, that features two brothers who are called to save a city from an impending darkness. And one is ready to pick up the sword and go do it, and the other one wants to go back to bed and have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I
And
feel
it's
that.
about, whether or not they're going to step up and be the hero or get swallowed up by the darkness.
Oh, I'm excited to find out what happens. Now I got to read
Yeah.
it. All right.
Yeah,
Awesome. Go
and
ahead.
that's exactly why I got into writing, though, is a little bit of escapism. When I was a young teen, 13, I hit a little bit of a rough patch in my life, and my writing went from simple stories and things like that to a place to go, a world that was kind of better than the one I was in at the moment, where you can solve your problems with a sword or a spell and, change all the rules to whatever fits you. And then as I grew older, I realized that there were other people that needed the same thing I did. And that's when the dream of becoming a published author first came.
Also, I can totally relate. Like getting into writing takes you away from the world for sure and allows you to create your own world, which is very cathartic. Cathart,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, cathartic's the right word.
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about your writing process.
Yeah, so I've been living in this world for a long time now. And really, it's about a question will occur or something will spark my interest either as I'm walking around in nature being inspired by the beautiful outdoors, or in my travels I've gotten to travel a lot of different places and thinking about different cultures, different people, and different questions that come up, different problems that need to be solved, and who would do that and what would they decide and what would they do. And so it's really about following that character when they pop up, like what do they want, where are they going, and seeing where it plays out. And that's really sort of my process for coming up with these stories.
Interesting. Now, how are you, if at all, like when you're looking at other cultures, are you applying that and taking aspects of those cultures and putting them into, because you're creating other like species, right? I would assume. And other different,
Absolutely.
so like how do you do that?
So I don't. So they call it cultural appropriation, which is kind of frowned upon these days. And I'm not part of that culture, so I don't write on that culture specifically. But I'll see a piece of their architecture or a piece of their art, or even sometimes the food, and think about places in my world that would have similar qualities, and it inspires me to create either a new culture, a new place, a new character. It's just inspiration. I try not to draw directly upon things that exist in real life, because it gets you in trouble. You make mistakes, and it's much more freeing. And that's one of the things I love about fantasy is you can make it all up, and no one can tell you you're wrong.
Nope. It's coming right from your head and you get to say what is and what isn't. Love it. Are you traditionally publishing or are you independently publishing?
Independently publishing. I just find that it's a little bit more freeing. It's a little bit it puts the author a little bit more in the driver's seat.
No question, no question. And I was talking to a buddy about it last night, and also honestly, we were looking at it and like, what does a publisher really bring to the table? Especially when it sounds like I don't know, I haven't gone through that whole process yet, so I don't really know, but it sounds like couple people that have gone through it, they're requiring people to have like 50,000 followers already. And I'm like, if I have that, I might as well tradition or independently publish, you know what I mean?
There are a lot of pros and cons in all the different ways to publish, which I found out there are like four. So there's like traditional 100% independent hybrid publishing, and then I just discovered something called Publishing Assist, which is basically like a concierge service where they guide
Hmm.
you through all the steps of independent. And really, it comes down to how much control you want and how much money you have, because that is the plus side of it of a traditional deal. Is they pay for the editor, they pay for the cover design, they pay for the publishing, and you don't get it on the back end quite as quickly because they take it out of your proceeds going forward, but you don't have to have it up front. So if you don't have those kind of resources, it's a way to go.
Yeah, no question, no question. Um, Great. What are you reading right now?
So I just found a book series called Stranger Times by C.K. McDonald, and it's hilarious.
Love
Again, a
hilarious.
little bit more of that escapism. It's a little bit of a feel good book with a little bit of a rougher edges. Um, but it's about the Stranger Times, which is a tabloid paper that talks about all the weird and wonderful things going on in the world and all the crazy people that are like, I married an alien, or I saw the Loch Ness monster. But as they're gathering these stories, they realize that there's something deeper, that there's something more sinister under the normal layer of London into something much more supernatural and darker.
Mm.
And but it's funny, it's suspenseful, it's a real good read. I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I'll have to check that one out. Uh, do you do you primarily read fantasy, or what's your
Um,
percentage
Fantasy
maybe?
is my favorite.
Yeah,
It's what I write. The world in itself can be dark enough to then for me to read like horror or thrillers or those sorts of things. I'm like, I kind of get enough of this in the news. I kind of get enough of this every day. But fiction, historical fiction, classic literature, I enjoy. My friend reads cozy mysteries and passes them on to me. So my varying tastes in reading kind of go all over the place, but primarily fiction in general, and primarily something that tends a little further from the real world.
cool. Love it. Where do you like to write?
So I chose not to show my background because this is a multi-purpose room. It's my work desk for my 9 to 5 job, my art studio, and my writing den. And in the wall over there, I have a tiny little folding table that is my Zen desk, my relaxation, where I just sit down there and I have my iPad and it's in front of a window, and I just after I drop the kids off on the bus, I come back upstairs, and before I start working, just type it out, and it's a nice, calm moment for me with a cup of matcha by me.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you're writing before you start work. Yeah, your 9 to 5, you're going to be writing.
Yep.
How many words can you usually get in that time?
It really varies. It depends on what's going on at work,
Sure.
what have I got to do, who's coming over later that day, whatever's going on. I try about 500 words to 1,000 if I'm really lucky.
Yeah, no, that's all. I mean, that's all it takes. I was
Right.
talking to another author, and he was like, I only have a little bit of time before I go to bed every night because he has kids and another 9 to 5
Hmm.
as well. And he's like, I get in 200 to 300 a day. And it took me, a couple years, but I got it done. And so it's just, it's taking the time it takes to get it done.
Yeah, that is the most important thing I think about writing in general is even slow progress is progress. And the more you
100%.
write is the more the practice, the better you get. It's all good stuff. You just
Yeah.
gotta go for it.
Yep. 100%. Um, what are authors you have learned from reading that have helped you become a better author?
Yeah, I have a few of those. Catherine Kerr was one that I read when I was a little bit younger, but she had a tremendously deep world that really inspired me. Also, Philip Pullman. He wrote his Dark Materials, which I think HBO just made a show of a few years ago.
Hmm. I think I
But
started watching it.
Philip Pullman is a really great author, and everything from his characters to his world to his the emotional highs and lows. He's a really good author, and I think that he really sort of taught me a lot. Michael J. Sullivan is also a great one. He did the Rhaenyra series, and then I read quite a bit of Brandon Sanderson as well, and he's kind of the man in
Oh,
fantasy
yeah,
these days.
yeah, he really is. Yeah, I follow him on Instagram, or I don't know if I follow him, but his stuff pops up all the time.
He's
And
very prolific. It's amazing.
yeah, what is, I don't like, I again, I haven't read him. I don't know much about his stories, but I get,
So he got his start actually with the Wheel of Time. Robert Jordan's, I think it's
oh,
Jordanson.
uh,
But the Wheel of Time is like 19 books, but Robert Jordanson died on the 16th or the 17th. And I know the super fans are out there, and I'm sorry for any mistakes I made. But he handpicked Brandon Sanderson to take over for him to write the last couple of books.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then from there he did Elantris. He's done. He's his sort of magnum opus, according to him, is his Way of Kings series, which are, I mean, to put this in perspective, the last one, which is Wing and Truth. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well because I travel, we have kids, I'm doing the laundry. Like sometimes you don't have time to sit down and write. But to put this in
100%.
perspective, the Bible is 60 hours, and Wind and Truth is 62 hours.
Damn.
So he's, like I said, he's quite prolific, but
Hmm.
they're fascinating. And he's one of these
Hmm.
authors that figures out his magic system down to the grain of sand. Like he can tell you the weight of, this versus that, and this is how this would respond. And I mean, the level of detail he goes in is really amazing. He's also done the Mistborn series, but the great thing is that he's also done a little bit more middle grade. He does a great one called Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, which is hilarious. And you look at Way of Kings, and then you look at that book, and you're like, that's done by the same author. So he's
Wow.
got great range too.
Yeah, that's spectacular. That's amazing. I gotta go dive into
I
him a
would
little bit more
recommend
then.
him.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I heard he was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, which is one of my favorites, and like the advice he was giving on there for authors was pretty amazing advice. Um, but great. On that, like obviously he's a largely successful author. Apparently he just sold his 50 millionth copy, which is wild. Um, how would you define success as an author for you?
So, the reality of being an author is much different than what I had thought as a 13-year-old.
Yep.
It's hard to kind of get found. It's hard to like find your niche and your people, and you have to be in 16 different places to get attention. But like the a publishing in the first place and like having that book in my hand was a huge success. Just getting that far like really filled me with a lot of joy. But then my book went to I have two kids, and one of them went to my daughter's friend, and she picked it up and she finished it in one day, even skipped a birthday party to finish the book. And that was really really cool to me. Like, I've kind of
Yeah, to
arrived,
know.
right? Like it was important enough to her
Yeah.
that she skipped a social
Yeah, she got
event.
so invested in the book that she's like, I don't even want to do this other thing that's probably fun. I want to finish this. That's tremendous.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that my daughter was mad at me for it. She's like, I was at that party, and I'm like, sorry, but that's like those stories are like that's why you do it. It's so that somebody gets your work and they enjoy it for that little bit
Mhm.
of time. You've brought somebody joy. You've brought somebody a break from their everyday lives, and brought them something that fills them with positive emotions. And that's what
That's
it's all about for me.
that really is what it's all about. I totally agree, 100%, no question. But going back to that other part that you talked about, the less exciting parts of being an author, what are you doing currently for marketing?
Yeah. So I'm here with you. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yep.
So I'm doing the podcast circuit. I am
Good.
on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I'm a little bit on TikTok. I'm on Blue Sky and Facebook, and um, I'm also doing some public speaking around. There is a convention, a sci-fi fantasy convention coming up in January in Virginia Beach. It's called MarsCon,
Cool.
and I'll be speaking on a few panels, and I'll be in the author's alley
Oh, that's
signing
super
books and
exciting.
selling. Yeah, and I actually might be able to lead my own panel. They haven't confirmed it yet, but I would be doing it on world building, which is something that through my travels I'm like incredibly passionate about, and one of the things that's
Oh yeah.
been highly praised in my book. So yeah, I'm really excited.
That's tremendous. That's so great.
Mhm.
What are you doing for content on socials right now?
So it's been a lot of updates about, like, because so much has happened. I just released my book in May. And, the audiobook is out, came out in
Oh,
October.
awesome.
I've been again to book signings and been here, been there, been at different events. So there's been a lot of that, but also talking about my world. I actually ran a contest to help for people to help me influence some of the locations in my world, some of the actually one of the big locations. So I try to pull in my audience that way to help me, in this world, in this book, and build it and make it better with their input.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, who, where, and or what inspires your characters?
Like I talked about before, a lot of it comes from travel. A lot of it comes from just questions like, if this were to happen, who would solve that? Who would fix that? Or who would this happen to? It's very kind of situational for me. For example, like I said, I've been working on this book series and this world for a long time. And in one case, I was clearly, if you start when you're 13, you need to rewrite them a few times as you get older.
Hmm.
And I was rewriting one of the books, and a character just popped out of nowhere. She was simply in the scene as I was writing, and I was just as shocked as my main character was to find this person in this room and been like, I have never thought about you. I have no notes on who you are. And I just wrote her dialogue and I heard her voice in my head. And I'm like, I like you a lot and I think I'll keep you in the book series. All right. So
That's
that's happened.
hilarious.
Yeah. And
So
I've
when
actually talked to other authors that's happened. So
uh
I'm not the only one.
that's wild. When you're building, when you're world building, how are you? You mentioned note taking. Where are you kind of taking those notes? How are you like constructing all of this, or do you just do it as you write?
A little of A, a little of B.
Yeah.
I have like like we all have phones, right? Like, and they're just on the
Yeah.
Notes app. Like, I
Hmm.
have several notes pinned to my
Hmm.
phone. People, places, and terminology. So as I come up with these things, like I'll write the note so that they stay consistent, because I think that's one of the most difficult things about being an author. But then I also just know things, right? And the fascinating thing for me personally is, I was thinking about one of these species, because I've got 8 major species in my world, and I was thinking about one of the ones that we don't look at quite as closely, and just being like, well, what is their society like? Like, what do they do when they have children? What do they do when these sorts of things come? And a short story just popped into my head about this piece of culture. and who's involved, and like there are two guards that are in charge of protecting this location, and one of them are really happy and one of them is really upset by it, and just their different points of view. And so it just springs up kind of naturally that way.
Cool. Interesting. Um, One thing I use that I highly recommend, and I need to share it and give it to people, which I plan to at some point. I just had to build the template, but I use Notion. That
Mm.
I don't know if you're how familiar you are with Notion, but it's great for capturing all my characters. Yeah, I tier them out on like what how important they are in the story, and then I also track all the world building stuff, species, time periods, where what different devices, because I write science fiction, so I have
Mhm.
different futuristic devices and what they are, and then who the founders of those are. And I track it all in Notion. That keeps it all nice and tidy. So
I've heard of
highly recommend
Notion.
that.
I've not played with it myself. I know another tool called World Anvil, which is like so deep. Like if you're a dungeon master, if you're an author, like it just you can build and build and build and build. But I've not discovered Notion. That's cool. I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah, and I need to look at some of these other ones because there was another one that someone recommended. Well, they didn't recommend it; they found it. I can't remember. It started with an S, but another like world building tool where it'll like pull stuff out while you're writing in it. So like as you're going, it's categorizing and using AI to pull it and put it in places, which I would really like because I don't like having to remember as I'm writing, like, oh, I gotta grab this. Like I use little shortcuts, like I use FJF is something I use when I want to come back to something. So then
Hmm.
I can like do a find and go and like go through everything that I need to go find. But do DKD is kind of my like, oh, this is a thing that I need to come back and grab to put in the world building thing. But if I didn't have to do that, that'd be great. But I also don't know how much I can rely on those tools. So like if it doesn't do it
Hmm.
once, then I'll never use it again. But
Right.
I gotta look more into some of those fancy tools, I think. Um, so what's a line from, we're gonna do first what's one from one of your books, and then we'll do one from another book. But what's a line from one of your books that has really stuck with you or that you really like that you've written? If you can come up with one. If you can't, don't worry about it.
No, I did some preparation on this interview, and I really looked at a lot of this. Um, and I'm a very visual person. Like when I write, like I'm actually in that place. I'm actually walking through that forest, or actually in that that tower, or wherever we are. And there's one scene where my two main characters, my brothers, are in this like dark bowels of this cave, and so they're werewolves, they're shifters, and one is a black wolf and the other one is a silver wolf, and the silver wolf wears his mother's ring around his neck. And so like one of the lines that like that image, and it really kind of stuck with me, is Black Wolf looked down at the gem catching the dim light and tapped it with a knuckle. She understood it. Perhaps it's time we did too. And the idea is that it's a shift in being told where to go and what to do, and finding out for yourself. Like a lot of my writing is about you know finding the worth in yourself, finding the purpose, and not letting other people tell you what you should and shouldn't be, and what you should and shouldn't do, and really just realizing that you're a worthy person as you are. What can you do? And so that scene just, it really sticks with me. Like it's time for us to figure ourselves out.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a great message to have in your stories. Mine's are much less purposeful. Mine's kind of just like funny and everything kind of sucks, but not to the same extent. But um, I love it. That's great. That was a great line. I like the moment, especially about the tapping of the knuckle. I really felt that.
Hmm.
Um, all right. So, what's a line from another author that stuck with you?
Okay, so we were talking about Brandon Sanderson earlier, and you were talking about that you really enjoy humor. And this is a line from Brandon Sanderson from the Scrivener's Bones in Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. Why does someone become a writer? Is it because they like people? Of course not. Why else would you seek out a job where we get to spend all day, every day, cooped up in the basement with no company besides paper, a pencil, and our imaginary friends? And
Spot
that's, yeah, like that portrayal of what, like who we are and what we do. Like if I could live in the basement and talk to my imaginary friends all day instead of the 9 to 5, like I would totally be there.
on. Yeah, totally. I mean,
So I enjoy
definitely.
that line.
Yeah, don't want to deal with people,
Hmm.
except for the times that I want to deal with people. But like, yeah, just
Right.
for work wise, like, yeah, let me just write and do my thing and then publish it and call it a day.
That's the dream.
Love it. Well, that's all I got. Before you go, shout out where people can find you. I'll link these all in the show notes, but just so people can hear them, where can they find you? Tags, websites, all that.
Absolutely. You can find me on all the social media channels we said before at BL Mostyn, Mostyn. That's also my website, blmostyn.com. And the best way to stay up to date with what's going on, what's new, is signing up for my newsletter. I give a lot of freebies, a lot of first looks. I love the people on my newsletter list. Yeah. So that's the way to get in touch with me. My book, again, Heroes of Another Age. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It is an audiobook. You can find it there on Audible, or Apple, or any of the major retailers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, BL. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you, JP. I appreciate your time.
Happy.